Funding is always an issue. I know we all talk about funding and it's an issue. I don't think there's anyone who's not grappling with funding in their own ways. But our experiences at SVRI in terms of grant making is that, for instance, we had a recent call that we closed and we received about 400 applications. So our grant making is focused on research that is on violence against women and violence against children. But a lot of the proposals that we receive are on violence against women. So there's very little proposals. There are very few proposals that are focusing on violence against children. And even more so, there are very few that are focusing on childhood sexual violence. So there's a lot of interest or proposals that are submitted that are focusing on violence against women. But then people are either shy or, there's just no maybe shy interest, whatever it is, but we don't get enough proposals. And sometimes we actually really struggle with funding proposals on violence against children or childhood sexual violence. And one of the reasons why we struggle with that is because the proposals that we receive, for instance, on childhood sexual violence, our focus is on research grant making, but a lot of them are on programs. So I think the field is saturated with programmatic work and little evidence generation or connecting evidence to research. So the programs that are being implemented, they're not tied to research. So we get a lot of, the few proposals that we get on childhood sexual violence are mostly around scaling up existing interventions, introducing, and not interventions in the research sense, like programs, scaling up programs, introducing new programs. But then I see a lot of opportunities to connect that to research, but then that does not happen. So we get, a proposal, and we actually provide very clear guidelines that this is what we are looking for. And one of the things, for instance, a small or big issue is, a guideline around literature review, that we need your study design to connect, or your issue to connect to literature. But then people don't do literature reviews. And for me, I see it as a gap in terms of capacity. Maybe we don't know how to do literature reviews. I worked in programs before I became a researcher. So half my career was in programs. And we didn't do literature reviews. I started doing literature reviews when I went to do my master's. So we don't engage with evidence when we are working on programs. And that's a huge gap, because if we don't engage with evidence, then what are we building on? What are our programs building on? And so I've discussed the issue of quantity. We are not getting enough research proposals on VAC, on CSV, issues of quality in terms of, a lot of programmatic focus, and even the research focused proposals are not really strong in their design or even in their approach, like, the issue I discussed about literature reviews. But also what we see is sometimes there are partners. For instance, an NGO will collaborate with a research institution or a university, but the power dynamics are so, huge. So the NGO, like we've discovered that some of our our grantees in the past, the NGO may not know what the research institution is doing. So the research institution just took the NGO partner on board just to write a proposal, but the NGO partner is really unaware of what the proposal is about, or what the research, or what they are doing. And so one of the things that also we are calling for is more collaboration, but more equitable collaboration, because the evidence should actually build, or there should be some integration, evidence building into programs, or programs promoting evidence, but we are not seeing that because of different reasons, including the kind of collaborations that are taking place. What would be the call to action is more collaboration, because it's for NGOs to seek out research institutions or universities. NGO X can reach out to Dr. Cherui at Desta University, and you put together a proposal. And I like what Chichi said, Dr. Chichi said yesterday during the afternoon presentation. She talked about their collaborative approach to the program that she presented, that it was them as a research institution, there were practitioners involved, there was probably another NGO doing the mobilization, and that then becomes a very strong proposal. And that is what I was talking about, equitable collaboration, that you're coming together at the table but with equal power, because sometimes what we see with collaboration is that it's not an equitable partnership. It's not an equal partnership. There's one person with a louder voice, with more power than the other. But if we can have these collaborative approaches to seeking grant proposals, and I believe even that is also a way to get to policymakers to hear what we are producing. Because if you have a policy brief or whatever developed in such a collaborative approach, then it gives a lot of strength to the policymakers to listen to what you're saying. And maybe I think the right word is to move away from this siloed approach of operating. Yeah, to move away from, I'm an NGO, I do programs, I'm a university, I teach, or to move away from this siloed approach and to have more connectivity in the way we work. Capacity, like build our capacity to confidently apply for these grants. Collaborate so that if you feel that you don't have adequate capacity, collaborate with someone else who can add on to your capacity.